So we're going to finish up chapter 6 today with solving radical equations. A radical equation is just an equation with a radical sign in it, right? So it could be a square root, a cube root, a fourth root, whatever kind of root, but it's got a square root of some sort. All right. So let's do the easy ones first, which is just a little square root. So the square root of x plus 2 equals 10. I'm still froze. Square root of x plus 2 equals 10. Now we know it's a square root. If it does not have an index, we assume it's a square root. Okay? So anytime there's not an index inside the radical, we assume it's a square root. Okay? So what's the opposite of taking a square root mathematically? Square root. So if I want to get rid of the radical, I'm going to square both sides because equations, I have to do the same thing to both sides. And when I square a square root, they cancel out. And that leaves me with what's underneath, which is just x plus 2. Equals 10 squared is what? 100. So now I just got the little bitty baby equation to solve x plus 2 equals 100. And how do I solve that for x? Subtract 2.
98.
X equals 98. That's the end of that problem. Okay? So to get rid of a square root, you square both sides. And remember, what you do to one side, you have to do to the other side. Let's do the same thing with a cube root. The cube root of 2x plus 7 equals 3. So if squaring is the opposite of taking a square root, what do you think is the opposite of taking a cube root? Yeah, raise it to the third power, right? So raise everything to the third power. Now you got to do it to both sides. So that little number on the other side has to be done to it too. So
2x plus 7 equals.
Yeah, so it's not 9. 2x plus 7 equals, what's 3 to the third power? 3 times 3 times 3. 27. Got it? All right. And then how do we get x by itself? Subtract 7 on each side. So 2x equals 20. Divide by 2. And x equals what? 10. So if you want to get rid of a cube root, you raise everything to the third power. Let's do this one. Y'all tell me what to do on this one. What do I do on this one? Square both sides, because it's a square root. Cancel the radical in the square. What does that leave me with?
5x minus 9
Equals what?
130.
It's on the blue sheet, isn't it? Yeah. We get to use those tomorrow on our test, don't we? Yeah, plus your calculator do it for you. And okay, so now we got to get the x by itself, so how do we do that?
Divide by. Oh, I mean subtract 9.
Well, they subtract 9.
Add 9.
Yeah. Add 9 to both sides. So what's 121 plus 9? So 5x equals 130. And x equals what? 26. Very good. Any questions about that?
Surely it's not the same.
It is this simple. It'll have them as rational exponents instead of radicals with the fractions. And that's it. We'll just have to make them radicals and fix them. Let's do this one. It looks a little different to start with. Notice that the minus 7 is not under the radical. Do y'all see that? So the first thing you have to do, if it's not just a radical on one side, is get the radical part by itself? So that's radical x plus 1 equals what? 6 plus 7? 13. So you got to get the radical by itself first. And then you can do what? Then after the radical's by itself, then you can square both sides. Cancel, cancel. X plus 1 equals what? What's 13 squared? 169. Now what do we do? And what's 169 minus 1? 168. That makes sense? Let's do another cube root. Uh, 2 times the cube root of x minus 4 equals 6. So again, what we want to do first is get the whole radical part by itself. So we want to get the cube root of x by itself. So it's kind of like you treat that whole thing as a variable and you move everything away from it. So what's the first thing you think we're going to move? Yeah, we're going to add 4. And what is 6 plus 4? 10. So this is 2 times the cube root of x equals 10. And then we got to get rid of that 2, and it's multiplied, so we divide it on both sides. And that is the cube root of x equals, what's 10 divided by 2? 5. Okay? So what's the opposite of taking a cube root? Cube it. Raise it to the third power. So that cancels. The radical leaves you with x equals, what is 5 to the third power? 125. Yep. I see what you did there. Are we good? Okay, here's another one very similar. 2 times the cube root of x minus 3, and that 3 is under the radical, equals 4. So we got to get the cube root part, the radical part by itself. So divide both sides by 2. So that leaves you with the cube root of x minus 3 equals, what's 4 divided by 2? 2. And then how do I get rid of the radical? Raise everything to the third power. That leaves you with x minus 3 equals, let's do the third power. 8. And then what? Add 3. And 8 plus 3 is 11. Any questions so far on what we've done? Easy? Okay. Y'all try these problems on your own real quick, on your paper. Everybody needs paper and a pencil and needs to be doing these problems. 2 problems. So the first one is radical x plus 25 equals 4. And it's the cube root of x minus 9 equals negative 1. Solve them both for x, please. Yep.
You get a negative answer.
Yep. Check them with somebody when you got them. All right, what do we do first on number 1?
Square.
Square both sides. The radical's already by itself, so go ahead and square both sides. Cancel, cancel. And that gets you x plus 25 equals what? What's 4 squared? 16. Now what? Subtract 25 everywhere. And what is 16 minus 25? Negative 9. Raise your hand if you got x equals negative 9 for the first one. Good job. Any questions there? All right, so number 2, you need to get the radical by itself first. So how do you do that? Add 9 to both sides. What's negative 1 plus 9? 8. So you got the cube root of x equals 8. And then how do you get the x by itself? You raise everything to the third power. And so that cancels the radicals. That leaves you with x equals, what is 8 to the third power? 512. Did y'all get that? All right, raise your hand if you got 512. Awesome. So is that difficult? No. The way I think we might struggle with this section, that was if, so this will be G, is when we see them with rational exponents. So solve using rational exponents. Remember, rational exponents is when the exponent was like a fraction. So let's do this example G. 4x to the 2/3 power equals 36. 4x to the 2/3 power equals 36. If you weren't here when we talked about rational exponents, you need to pay attention right here. Because there's a lot of rational exponents on that test. And if you looked at the study guide at all, you see a lot of them. You got to know how to evaluate them. All right. So the first thing we want to do is get the x part by itself. Okay, we want to get the x to the fractional exponent by itself first. So how do you think we're going to do that?
Multiply by 2 over 3.
No. Divide by the 4 first. Divide by the 4. Then we get x to the 2/3 power equals what? 9. Now, to get rid of the rational exponent to make it equal x to the first power, we multiply by the reciprocal of that fraction. Reciprocal means you interchange the numerator and the denominator, right? So what is the reciprocal of 2/3? 3 over 2. So we multiply by 3 over 2 over here. And we raise this side to the 3 over 2 power as well. Because remember, in an equation, what you do to one side, you got to do to the other side. 2/3 times 3 over 2 makes 6 over 6, which equals 1, right? So that's x to the first power. That's x by itself, y'all. And so we've got to do the 9. So if you were here last week, how do I evaluate 9 to the 3 over 2? Now remember, how do we set it up with the radical?
Is it the 2? Is it square? Or,
square root.
Yeah, square root of 9. And then the 3 on the outside.
That's right. So whatever the denominator is, that's your index. So that's the square root of 9 all raised to the 3rd power. So when you have a rational exponent, the denominator is your index, and you're going to raise everything to the numerator power. Big number goes in the radical. Okay, y'all with me? What is the square root of 9? 3. It's plus and minus 3 because square roots you got to consider plus and minus, right? And then we raise that to the third power. So what is 3 to the third power? 27. So x equals plus and minus 27. There's your answer.
So you just do 9 squared.
No, square root of 9. Yeah, whatever number the denominator is, that's your index. That's what root you're taking. Okay, and whatever the numerator is, you raise after you take the square root, you raise it to that power.
What about that 2 on the outside?
That's your index. That means what root you're taking. So if it's a 2, it's a square root. If it's a 3, it's a cube root. If it's a 4, it's a fourth root. It's what root you're taking. Because we don't just take square roots, we take all kinds of roots. That's why you need your little blue sheet out right now. Everybody needs their blue sheet out. It helps. Mm-hmm. All right, this next one. 7x to the 3/5 power equals 56. So first we need to get the x by itself. So how do you think we're going to do that? Divide by 7. So that's going to be x to the 3/5 power equals what? 8. Everybody with me so far? I just divided both sides by 7. Now, what did I do over there to get rid of the fractional exponent? Multiply by its reciprocal, or raise it to its reciprocal power. And whatever I do on one side, I got to do to the other side. So 5 over 3 power over here. So this makes 15 divided by 15, which equals 1. So those exponents cancel out and leave you with the x. Now how do I make this look like a radical?
3 square root.
It's not square root.
Quadruple root.
That's 4. It's the cube root. It's whatever this number is root. So it's a cube root. Of what number?
8.
And then I raise everything to the
5th.
5th. That's it. They call this the index. Okay? So whatever root you're taking, that's the index.
So it's x equals plus or minus.
You don't have to do plus and minus for a cube root because it's an odd exponent. It's odd. So this is odd. You don't have to do plus or minus, just with evens, right? So just for square roots, fourth roots, 6 roots, 8 roots, etc. So what is the cube root of 8? 2. So this is 2 to the 5th power. And what is 2 to the 5th power? 32. Final answer.
See, how do you do that cube thing? Cube root in calculus?
You can raise it to the 1/3 power. 8 rooftop parentheses 1 divided by 3.
Oh, you don't actually hit the
Rooftop. 8 rooftop. 1 divided by 3. You missed those lessons. I'll get with you in a minute. It's not bad. All right, let's do I. Let's do one like this. X plus 2 to the 3/4 power minus 1 equals 7. Now this look like fun. It's really not bad. All right, let's get that parentheses by itself because it's got the rational exponent on it. So get everything with the rational exponent by itself. So how do I get it by itself?
plus 1.
Nope, add the 1 to both sides. So that gives me x plus 2 to the 3/4 power equals what 7 plus 1? 8. Very good. Now, how do I get rid of this 3/4 power? Raise it to the what?
4/3.
Reciprocal, 4/3. I'm going to use brackets since I already have parentheses. And I got to do 4/3 on both sides. Because what you do to the one side of the equal sign, you got to do the other. That makes 12 divided by 12, which cancels out. And it leaves you with x plus 2 equals. And then we've got to make this a radical. How do we make 8 to the 4/3 power a radical? What's the index? What's the index? 3. So it's the cube root of 8 all raised to what power? 4. Denominator goes here, numerator goes here. If it makes you feel better, bottom, top, right? Because this is going to be on the bottom, that's on the top, right? Bottom, top. All right, what is the cube root of 8? We just asked ourselves that a while ago. What is the cube root of 8? 2. 2 to the 4th power. What is, sorry, I got to get some space. What is 2 to the 4th power? So, yes, right. X plus 2 equals 16. And then how do I solve for x? Subtract 2. And then x equals what? 14. This isn't so bad once y'all evaluate your radical. Right? Let's do one more, then you guys are going to try some on your own. And then we'll be done with this lesson, I promise. Told you it's short and sweet. Short and sweet. But you got to practice it and know you're good at it, though. So x minus 4 to the 2/3 power minus 9 equals 16.
Plus 9.
So what do I do first, y'all? Add 9. Do y'all agree?
Yeah.
So I have parentheses, x minus 4 to the 2/3, I'm going to leave some space, equals what? 25. All right, so now everything over here has the rational exponent. How do I get rid of the exponent?
3/2.
Use the reciprocal, which will be 3/2. And I'm going to use brackets since I'm already using parentheses. And if I raise it to the 3/2 power on the left side, I got to raise it to the 3/2 power on the right side. We good? Okay, so these cancel. And just leaves you with x minus 4 equals. How do I rewrite 25 to the 3/2 as a radical? To the 3rd power. Right? Now this is where it gets a little crazy. Because if I take a square root, I have to consider the positive and the negative. Correct? So I got to say plus and minus 5. So x minus 4 equals square root of 25 is 5. So plus and minus 5 to the 3rd power. And what is 5 to the 3rd power?
125.
Yes. So this is x minus 4 equals plus and minus 125. Y'all with me so far?
Then
All right.
x equals plus 1.
Hang on a sec. Don't rush. Don't rush. I see what you're doing. Okay, what were you? Keep talking.
X equals 129, and then x equals 121.
Close. Very close. Like a negative sign away from being right.
Yeah, a negative.
And yeah. Okay, so here's what Dylan has done. Add the 4 to each side. Right? And you can stick it on the front, you can stick it on the back. I like to stick it on the front. So that's the same thing as x equals, that plus and minus we got to deal with, right? Because we got to consider it being adding 125 and subtracting 125. Y'all see that? So you could write it 4 plus 125, and you need to write it 4 minus 125, because that's what that plus and minus does right there. Does that make sense to everybody? So 4 plus 125 is 129. And 4 minus 125 is negative 121. So you got 2 answers. So when you're going to have 2 answers will be if this root right here is an even. So if you're taking a square root or a fourth root or a sixth root or an eighth root or a 10th root, etc.
How come it's a negative 4? You put it on the beginning? If you did like 125 minus 4, it would be a 125.
You don't subtract the 4. It's a positive negative 125. You're adding 4 to both sides. The 4 has to be positive.
Okay.
Does that make sense? So you can say
okay.
so you can say positive 125 plus 4 or negative 125 plus 4.
But on that side, you start with a negative.
Yeah. Yeah. This is the one that gets the signs changed, not the 4. All right, y'all are awesome. I do want you to try like 4 of these on your own. So it's going to take you about 10 minutes or so. These come from the book. So I want you to try them and then we'll go over it. It's number 5, and I'll write them up here so you don't have to get your book out for this. 3x to the 3 over 2 equals 375. Number 6 says negative 2 x to the 3/4 equals negative 16. Number 8 says parentheses x plus 3 to the 5 over 2. And number 10 says parentheses x plus 2 to the 2/3 plus 3 equals 7. Try those right now on your paper. Everybody working them out. You don't know if you can or you can't until you try.
Can you show me how to do the fraction thing in the calculator?
Actually, so like say you're taking a fifth root or something. Okay, whatever your fraction root you're taking, like say you're going to be taking a cube root of 125. You just have 125 raised parentheses. So whatever root you're taking, you raise it to the 1 over that number of powers.
Whatever number on the bottom, is that what you?
Mm-hmm. That's your denominator.
And then that number is still squared.
Yeah, and then you do the outside exponent.
Or
Whatever the numerator exponent is. So then you square it so that it's 1 power. Mm-hmm.
square is you make it the square root.
If it's on the outside, it's square.
So just do 2.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. Y'all need me, let me know. You need to rewrite it. Just offering classes. Okay. Yes, sir. What's the key root of your back? You just stop square. Do the radical first and then do the outside exponent. No, we've already taken the radical. 5 squared.
I got a big old one.
Which one are you doing?
Number 6.
Okay, so 4/3. So you're taking the cube root of 8. You didn't show it that. Cube root of 8 is only 2. 2 to the 4th power is only 16. Cube.
8 to the 3rd is
It's 2, 8 to the 1/3.
I've got that.
Cube root of sheet has cube roots, fourth roots, and cube roots. I'll get stuck, let me know. Do what? No, it's like that. You just go ahead and raise it to a power. Y'all get done with them, check them with somebody, and we'll go over them. All right, let's go over them. Number 5. What do you think we do first on number 5? Good. Divide by 3 everywhere. So that gets you x to the 3 over 2 power equals what's 375 divided by 3? 125. All right. So how do I get rid of a 3 over 2 power? I raise it to the what? 2/3. And I raise both sides to the 2/3, right? So those cancel and leave me with x by myself. How do I change this to a radical? What radical is that the same as? Cube root of 125 all squared. Oh, I just wrote what the cube root of it was. What is the cube root of 125? So 5 squared, and what is 5 squared? Raise your hand if you got x equals 25 for the first one. Any questions about that one? We go with that one. So number 6, same thing. Divide and then get rid of your rational exponent. So how do we get x by itself first on number 6? Come on, y'all. You're going to have to talk to me or I'm going to call on names. Divide by -2. So x to the 3/4 power equals what? 8. Now how do I get rid of my 3/4 power? Raise it to the 4/3. And do both sides to the 4/3. So those cancel, leave me with x. How do I raise 8 to the 4/3 power? What's the same thing as doing it as a radical? Cube root of 8 to the 4th. What is the cube root of 8? And what is 2 to the 4th power? 2 to the 4th power? 16. 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 4 is 16. Any questions about that one? Are you good with that one? Okay. Let's look at number 8. X plus 3 to the 5/2 power. It doesn't add or subtract anything, right? So the first thing we need to do on number 8 is get rid of the exponent. So how do we get rid of the exponent? 2/5. Cancel, cancel. So we have x plus 3 equals, now how do we make this a radical? All squared. All right, I'm going to copy that x plus 3. What is the 5th root of 32? It's 2. And I think that one is on the blue sheet, isn't it? Okay. So that's just 2 squared. And what is 2 squared? X plus 3 equals 4. And how do I solve that for x? And x equals 1. Any questions about that one? Number 10, same thing, but there's just one more step at the beginning. What do you have to do first on number 10? Subtract the 3. So that is x plus 2 to the 2/3 power equals what? Okay, and how do I get rid of the exponent? That's right, 3/2, reciprocal. Cancel, cancel. X plus 2 equals, how do I set that as a radical? All right, if we're taking a square root, though, y'all, you got to be plus and minus 2 squared, right? And what's 2 squared? So that's x plus 2 equals plus and minus 2. Now what do we do? It's 4, because 2 squared is 4, isn't it? Thank y'all. What would I do without you young minds in here correcting me all the time? Probably do bad math all day long. All right, now what? Yeah. I like to stick mine on the front. So that's x equals -2 plus and minus 4. So then I break it into 2 problems. X equals -2 plus 4, and x equals -2 minus 4. Do y'all understand that about the plus and minus? Okay. So what is -2 plus 4? 2. And what is -2 minus 4? -6. Did anybody get 2 and -6? Any questions? All right. So your practice, I've only got 18 problems down for us to do. $4.56. You do have some of these on your test tomorrow, so you do need to practice. I skipped around, just picked the best ones. Starting with 23. These have square roots in them, these have cube roots, and these have the rational exponents. So you might want to do those first while I'm in here and it's handy. because we won't have like a whole lot of time to go over a whole lot before your test. Speaking of your test, let's stop recording for the day. Bye-bye, YouTube.